Welcome to the Passive House podcast, brought to you by Passive House Accelerator, a catalyst for zero carbon building. For news, inspiration, and connections from all flavours of Passive House, check out passivehouseaccelerator.com. Sign up to receive regular updates about events, get your questions answered, and contribute to the community dialogue. There's loads of free information for experienced professionals and people just starting out on their Passive House journey. We hope to see you at one of our weekly Passive House Accelerator live webinars. In the meantime, here's this week's Passive House podcast. G'day, welcome back to the Passive House podcast. I'm Matthew Cutler-Welsh, coming to you from Auckland, New Zealand.
And I'm Zack Semke, coming to you from Seattle, Washington.
And you're just back to Seattle, Zack.
I am. I had a very exciting week in New York City. We were producing the awards ceremony program for NYSERDA for their Buildings of Excellence Round 3 award winners in collaboration with AIA New York and NYSERDA, and that was really exciting. And it was we wanted to make sure we did a really good job, and I think we delivered, which was fun, and very inspiring work that is going on there, and also a real focus on both affordable housing with this new round and also design excellence. So they now have a blue ribbon for design excellence award as part of the Buildings of Excellence Awards. So we saw a bunch of really cool projects. Yeah, so it was fun.
And for those that couldn't make it, will that be some of that be available?
Yep, we'll be sharing the video shortly. Yeah.
Well, I just assume, because I've heard it enough now, when we say NYSERDA, does everyone know what we're talking about?
Oh, yes, right. Thank you. NYSERDA is the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, and we are lucky to be doing a lot of work with NYSERDA. They are the state agency in New York that is tasked with basically realizing the climate goals of New York State. And so buildings are a critical piece of that. And so they're, they've become a leader in showing the way for everyone around how to do climate-friendly buildings, clean and resilient buildings. And Passive House they recognize Passive House as a really powerful tool to get where the state needs to go.
And they've been around for a while, haven't they? It's sort of it's not pre-climate change, but it's pre-mass awareness of climate change. This sort of energy efficiency has been part of their mission for, mid-70s or however long they've been around for.
That's my understanding. I think it's the state agency that's been around forever.
And do you know if it's quite common for them to work with the Architects Institute?
So their model has been to collaborate with organizations in these communities. So both nonprofits and for-profits and manufacturers and architects and builders. So yes, they have partnered with AIA for a while, and Building Energy Exchange. Urban Green is another organization in New York. The Passive House Accelerator. So I think that's a kind of a key way that they do their work is to work with community partners.
Yeah. And one of the things that NYSERDA are promoting at the moment, I see on their website, are heat pump subsidies and a big heat pump program, which is very topical for today's interview.
Indeed.
Before we get into that, we'll do a shout out to our other sponsors, of which NYSERDA is definitely one. But let's do a quick shout out to all the other supporters of the show.
Yeah, absolutely. So everything we do at Passive House Accelerator, including the Passive House podcast, comes thanks to the generous support of our sponsors. So a big thank you to our founding sponsors: 475 High Performance Building Supply, Baxt Inqui Architects, Glavel Foam Glass Gravel, Minutair All-in-One HVAC and Dehumidification Units, Mitsubishi Electric Trane HVAC US, Partel, Rockwell North America, Stow-Corp, and Zola Windows. Thanks to our champion sponsors: Icon Windows and Doors, Intelligent Membranes, Proseco and Source 2050. And a big thank you to NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority.
Awesome. All right. Well, tell us about this week's guest.
Yeah, so I caught up with Voya Milasinovic, who is the manager of performance construction and electrification at Mitsubishi Electric Trane HVAC US. And it was a really fun conversation. Voya has taken on this kind of liaison, and he has a lot of hats at Mitsubishi Electric, but one of them is interacting and engaging with the passive house community. So he talks about some cool examples of passive house. I say cool, but it's actually that's appropriate because it's in a hot and humid climate, and so you're staying cool, and kind of some of the specific challenges around that, some of the inspirations around that, and then a lot about the importance of skilled trades. And this is a theme that comes, Kimberly Llewellyn, who's also at Mitsubishi Electric, and Chad Gillespie. It's a theme that is really one that they're kind of taking the lead on in terms of working to turn around this notion that a 4-year college degree is the only legit pathway for someone's career. They really are pointing out the importance of the trades. So we get into that. It's a great, really thoughtful conversation with Voya. And so I hope everyone enjoys it. I'm really happy to have Voya Milasinovic, manager of performance construction and electrification at Mitsubishi Electric Trane HVAC US, here on the Passive House podcast. Thanks for being here, Voya.
You're very, very welcome, and thank you for having me. And I'm kind of impressed that you were actually able to say the entire name and Mitsubishi Electric Trane HVAC US all in one breath without tripping, because I trip over that like almost every single day.
That's very kind. I feel like there were some near trips, but
kudos to you.
Thanks, man. Well, this is great. Thanks for sitting down with me. And I think it'd be really cool if we could start with your role at Mitsubishi Electric. Can you share what you do there with the audience here?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you said, my role is the manager of performance construction and electrification for Mitsubishi Electric. My role really is that of an influencer, advocate, educator. Primarily what my entire team under Chad's leadership do is we work with developers, builders, architects, engineers to try and educate them to benefits of building all electric, try to move the entire building industry to a better, tighter, more efficiently built home that lasts longer. Personally, for me, coming from overseas, I grew up in a home that was a third, if not fourth generation built home in a third world country. And I come to the US, and it's a country with so much opportunity. And by the time I pay my 30-year mortgage, it's time to tear the house down and build new because it's falling apart around me.
Yeah, right.
And I think we can do better than that. So our team really concentrates on pushing those principles and educating folks on the benefits of those principles and the value of them. And then the HVAC sales just kind of tend to follow.
Wow, that's a really interesting and powerful perspective to bring to the work. So how did you find yourself at Mitsubishi Electric? What was that journey like?
It was a very, at times direct and at times convoluted journey. Spent roughly 20 some odd years now in the construction industry. 10 plus years I spent as a contractor between upstate New York, Florida, and then finally Texas. And I decided to go into distribution. And working with distribution, I had a chance to work with a product that I had installed once or twice before called Mitsubishi Electric. And I went in and started selling the product, and very shortly became my distributors at that time top salesperson. And vast majority of that product sold was Mitsubishi electric product because I saw the future and I saw the product as being something that wasn't threatening to the dealers. I wasn't coming in and asking them to switch their product line that they've had a relationship with for 20 years. I was simply coming in and offering them a product that could be a really, really good add-on and a bonus product for them. And very quickly, I saw a lot of dealers start to become primarily Mitsubishi dealers. Through that and through work with Mitsubishi, I saw the culture of Mitsubishi. I came to learn what Mitsubishi stood for as a company, what the mission was, and that they were trying to do something other than just sell boxes. And that was very different and very refreshing because every manufacturer of HVAC product, their goal is to sell boxes. So is ours, but we take a different approach to it. We look at the community as a whole. We try to look and support the entire product from cradle to grave. So design support, application and installation support, retirement support of the product when it's time, and then switching over to a more efficient product line with Mitsubishi. So that was something that really interested me. And it was funny is because I had to leave the distributor that I was with, and I had to be either gone from them for a minimum of 1 year or get permission from them to even have a conversation with Mitsubishi. So, of course, I convoluted a plan. I left and I went to a non-competitor specifically so that I could then apply at Mitsubishi when the time was right. Because I really, really wanted to come in and work with a company that held the same values, the same beliefs that I do.
Yeah.
And, I came in with Mitsubishi almost 5 years ago, spent almost 4 years working as an area sales manager, predominantly working with dealers and developing dealers. And then when the opportunity came up to take on the position that Kimberly Llewellyn had held previously with the performance construction team, Kimberly Llewellyn, who, by the way, I'm sure most folks listening to this podcast know, she is my hero. She's what I want to be when I grow up. I know I'll never be as smart nor as good looking, but you know what? I can at least try and fill one of her shoes. But I knew that this was the position I wanted to be in. This was what I wanted to do. And lo and behold, Chad agreed. We'll see if that was the right decision he made or not.
Right.
For both of our sakes. But man, I love what I do now, and I wouldn't look back and I wouldn't do anything else.
Yeah, fantastic. That's well, it's a great team. And you're referring to Chad Gillespie, and
yes.
both Chad and Kimberly have presented a component spotlight on at least one on the Passive House podcast. So, or not for Passive House Accelerator, rather. So we will share a link to that in show notes. And then we also have a podcast interview with Kimberly Llewellyn from the early days of the podcast. Really interesting conversation, and we'll link to that episode as well in the show notes. So just wanted to give a couple of shout outs so that listeners know they can dive in deeper here with your colleagues. So I know you have, you're involved in a lot of Passive House projects. Could you maybe tell us about a couple that stand out for you in your work?
Yeah, so the ones that stand out to me, and like you said, I am involved with a lot of passive projects across the country, just by the fact that I was kind of voluntold almost to be the passive liaison with the company, because it's something that really interested me when I first learned about passive house building principles. And I wanted to educate myself more on the principles and get certified. So I am involved with a lot of them, but the ones that really stand out that are near and dear to my heart are the passive projects in the South. Mm-hmm. We don't see very many, if any, passive projects in the South. And I feel personally that a lot of that has to do with just the industry understanding that, number one, yes, passive principles kind of started out in the northeast corridor and Canada, and then started to propagate widely throughout the northern band of the US and Canada as well. Down in the South, they're not really understood. And they're not understood for one specific reason. We concentrate in the passive community on telling everyone how good passive house principles are for keeping heat in. Well, we don't want to do that in the South.
Right.
We kind of want to do the opposite, right?
Uh-huh.
We want that Yeti cooler. We don't want to keep the heat in. We want to get the heat out and keep it out. And passive principles do that very well. The physics remain the same, but the application is slightly different. And that's why these projects are so near and dear to my heart, because they kind of force us to think a little bit differently. So one of the projects that I'm involved with right now is I'm working with Jesse Hunt, who's the president of the Passive House, or the FIAS Houston, FIAS chapter in Houston.
Right.
He is currently in the process of building a duplex, a passive house duplex, 2-story, about 2,200 square foot per duplex. And we're working with, I believe it's going to be Santa Fe for the dehumidification. And then I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, because I've got all of these different projects mixed in my head, of which ERV system we were using. I don't believe we settled on Zender on that particular project just because the space wouldn't allow for it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a very, very cool project. He is looking to build something that can be easily duplicated in Texas, in Houston, Texas market, which is a very, very cheap construction market.
Mm-hmm.
So the bar is set very, very low when it comes to pricing. And Jesse has to figure out how to build something passively, yet keep it within range of just a normal individual to purchase that home, where it's not more than 5% over the cost of typical construction. And I think we've been able to actually figure that out and get it done. And then the other project is the one that Gil Ramirez, who is also on the board of FIAS Houston, working on. And I hope this is a project that maybe we can get to either visit or highlight.
This is, I think I know this one. He presented at the Humid Climate Conference in Austin, I think, which is where we first met. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So it's I've heard it called multiple different things. Gil Demar, I've heard it called Oceanfront Villas, but what it is it's an 11-unit Airbnb villa style hotel that is being built passively. But what I love about this project, and what I love about what Gil is doing, he is creating an environment where anyone can come in and rent the space for a weekend or a week, come in and visit the Galveston shore, have some fun, have some great food, because let's face it, Texas, especially Houston area, is foodie heaven. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, see the actual equipment in operation. So he's designing this entire project with see-through doors.
Yeah, so remarkable.
To the mechanical room. Yeah. So you can see the lungs of the home. Mm-hmm. And then QR codes on every single component, so that the visitor can simply scan that and then be taken either to the website or to a story, like what we're trying to do with Mitsubishi. Is we want to build an entire video story about, hey, why did we choose this project to partner up with? Why is this project such a cool project? And what is passive building? What is the benefit of it? Like, why would you ever want to consider building passive? And I think that in our market, that is something that is sorely, sorely needed. So I absolutely love that particular project. And those are just the 2 out of like 25 or 30 projects.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic. So when you're looking at those like 20 or 30 projects that you're, kind of touching, what are some of the key challenges that you're addressing in providing HVAC to passive buildings? So
same challenges that the entire building industry faces right now and for the next 10, 15 years and on, just magnified tenfold. That challenge is lack of skilled labor. Not just skilled labor on the installation side, but lack of skilled labor and understanding on the design side as well. Can we go in and reach out to an architect and a mechanical designer from the Northeast that's familiar with passive principles and has done passive projects? Yeah, absolutely, we can. But what does that do for our market? What does that do to push and expand passive construction in the Texas, Louisiana, New Mexico corridor? So the challenge that I have and that Gil and Jesse have had is finding a engineer that is willing to take the time to learn passive principles, willing to take input from folks that have done it before, willing to build those relationships and design the system properly so that it operates and does exactly what we intended to do. And then second, bigger challenge than that is getting a contractor who isn't scared to learn something new. Getting the contractor who is not only capable and we feel confident is capable of performing the installation exactly as it's designed, but who's not going to shy away from it or price it triple the value just in case something goes wrong because they're afraid and they've never done a project like this. So it's trying to re-educate the entire industry, get them to forget everything they've learned, and simply understand that when someone hands you a completed design and all you have to do is follow the steps from A to Z and not deviate from those steps, it's not scary. It's easier. It's better for you. There's less liability for you as a contractor. But unfortunately, this is something they've never done. So couple that with the fact that we don't have enough contractors. We've done a very, very good job turning kids away from trades over the last 15, 20 years that now it's coming back around to bite us in the butt.
Yeah.
We've got to try now to figure out how do we reverse that trend and how do we get new blood into the industry, new blood that's willing to learn and willing to put themselves out there, because majority of contractors in this market, they're 5 years from retirement. Where is their incentive to learn something new?
Right. That's interesting. Yeah. Why have we done that? Why have we created this situation?
We can go on a complete tangent and put our tinfoil hats on, possibly hide in our bunkers if that's what we feel like, because there's plenty enough conspiracy theories for it, and there's plenty enough really legitimate theories for it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the reason was that my generation, your generation, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're Gen X.
Yeah, we are.
We were raised by folks who had a very, very hard life.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't have a very easy time growing up. I jokingly tell everybody that is of younger generations and asks that, hey, I grew up with the daylight being my babysitter. My video games were outside.
That's right.
And it's not that I needed to go home when the streetlights came on. It's that my parents didn't want me around until the streetlights came because they had stuff they needed to accomplish. Yeah. It was just in the way. Mm-hmm. And we saw that maybe we wanted to give our kids a better future. Mm-hmm. And what we did is, at the time, it looked and it made sense to tell everybody, you need to go to college.
Right. Yeah.
You need to get a management degree, and you need to strive for that corner office. But there's only so many managers you can have in the world. There's only so many suits that you can have in the world. The world needs people that are willing to get into an attic and get dirty and install an HVAC system. Mm-hmm. World needs plumbers. World needs electricians. We can't build this world without them. And mistakenly, we told the kids, see, son, see that plumber there? You don't want to be like him. That's why you need to go to college. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting here looking at it now going, why don't I want my kids to be like him? No. Yeah, Every plumber I know drives a $80,000 brand new truck, has $200,000 boats, 4 quads, a 50-foot camper, and 3 vacation homes and 3 deer leases that he goes and hunts on. And I'm sitting here going, man, that sounds like a really nice life. Like, he's got all those things because he's got time that he can take off to spend with those things, and he still lives a nice life. Mm-hmm. It's something we need to figure out a way how to tell the kids today that there's nothing wrong with working with your hands. There's nothing wrong with starting and having your own business in trades. It will only benefit you. It'll benefit your family. It'll benefit the world because we need it.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. So on kind of, I think related here, Mitsubishi Electric does outreach to the Passive House community, of course, but also much broader outreach, right? I mean, you were just at the International Builders Show. I know you're about to go to the World of Modular conference. So can you talk a little bit about why that kind of outreach is important to you?
Yeah. So why we participate in those events is, first of all, to stay top of mind.
Sure.
Right now, when everyone thinks of mini splits, and whether that be ductless mini splits or all climate heat pumps or ducted mini splits, the technology is the same. 90% of the time, when you say mini split, people are going to think of Mitsubishi. We want to make sure that continues. Sure. So that's the first step of why we're there. The second step of why we're there is we, as a company, realize that the only way to really push adoption of all climate heat pumps and to change how we build is to be present at various events where builders are, to help push and spur the market transformation. And the market transformation doesn't have to be coming out with policies that force us away from gas. Market transformation can happen by coming in and getting that 10 to 15% of people who are progressive thinking and open-minded in the building community to understand that the benefit of going all electric and using all climate heat pumps is, number one, you're building a better, stronger home. Number two, you're increasing the occupant health. I mean, if we think about over the last 15, 20 years, the rise in childhood asthma and various other allergies with kids, what is it related to? Gas that we use in homes for cooking and heating today isn't any different than it was 15, 20 years ago. But what has changed is we've changed how we build. Codes have changed. They forced us to build tighter homes. So those VOCs have nowhere to go. And the kids, 20 years ago, they used to spend a lot more time outside than they do today. So it's just a revolving door that isn't good for the populace, isn't good for our communities. If we can build a better home, and if we can convert that home to an all-electric home, we're building and creating a healthier environment for the occupant. That in turn leads also to a happier consumer that's willing to spend a little bit more money. But if we can get the adoption of these products and building principles to levels where they're commonplace, now we reduce the cost. And now not only are we building a better home, a healthier home, but we're also achieving it for less money. So that creates a more affordable home. And that takes us into what we're doing with these builders and why, for example, we're going to World of Modular. Because the construction industry has to change. And we're seeing that right now, modular building industry is exploding. And they're building passively. They're building very, very well-built, very tight homes. They're doing it all in an enclosed environment, meaning that I can bring that home out and have it completely weathered in the moment it gets set. Great. What wrong could I possibly see with a home that not only goes up faster, but is not exposed to the elements during the building process? Right. There's no mold, there's no moisture already trapped in there. So now if I can build that home and build it all electric, now I've also reduced the cost to the developer. I've reduced the cost to the builder for not having to bring in gas lines to this home. So there's a lot of different approaches we can take to create that market transformation. And I personally feel that it is on us as product manufacturers to drive that market transformation. Yes, builders are a huge driving force as well, but the builders can't do it on their own. Manufacturers of products such as Mitsubishi, such as Santa Fe, such as Zender, we need to take a leading role and educate builders in how to use our product properly, because let's face it, we make a product that is second to none. But you can take our product, design it wrong, and install it wrong, and it doesn't matter how good it is. It's never going to perform right.
Right.
And it's always going to fail prematurely. So we have to do a better job educating everyone how to design with our systems. And that means educating ourselves on what all is involved in passive construction. And one of the things that I like to think about and fall back on, and I try to mention in a lot of my different trainings, is if you're an architect, you've heard of a guy named Vitruvius. You've heard of Vitruvius' 10 books on architecture. And one of the first principles that he talks about in his first book is that if you want to do something well, you've got to learn a little bit about everything that goes in the process of building. Because only then do you understand the whole picture, and you start to figure out and learn how all of these systems interact with each other. And it makes you think outside the box. We're just a cog in that entire machine.
Yeah.
You have to learn what other cogs are in the machine and how they operate.
Throwing down the Vitruvius for you, and it's I mean, when you were answering that question, which it was a great answer, all I could think of was this holistic vision of, around product development, around marketing, around the business strategy, and around the health and wellness of people who are using these products. And then like the understanding of how it's applied in the field. So that's awesome. That was really great.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's next? Like, what's on the horizon then for Mitsubishi Electric? What's coming down the pike, you think?
A lot of things. There's a lot of things in development. There's a lot of things in talks for development. Obviously, until it's all out, everything is top secret. Mitsubishi is.
Yes.
We as a company not only try to keep our new developments close to our chest during the development and building stage, but also during testing stages. And we spend a lot of time testing product in the market to make sure that it's actually going to operate the way we think it's going to operate in all different climates and all different areas of the country. So there's a lot of cool things coming down the pipe. Suffice to say that a lot of those things are inspired by and sort of geared, towards the passive building community and the stretch code building community. Obviously, as a company, we have to appeal to the broader range of consumer. So product we create is going to always be product that can be utilized in every aspect of new construction. Whether it be multifamily, standard construction, passive construction, modular building, whatever it is. But I'm happy to say a lot of the new products have been inspired by the asks and the demands from the passive building.
Nice. Yeah.
One of the things that we just released a few months ago, I know everybody's heard of the multifamily hot water, domestic hot water system. We've done a couple of different webinars on those already here and other passive venues. The other one was that our MLZ ceiling cassette, the one-way ceiling cassette, was a very, very popular product with the passive community, but it was large. The smallest system we had was 3/4 ton. And for most passive envelopes, that's kind of big. It's way oversized. So we released a 6,000 BTU version of that same product, slightly smaller in footprint, and 30%, smaller in capacity. Could we possibly go lower? Probably, potentially, but let's see how this particular product does in the market. But other than that, there's a lot of really cool things coming down the pipe that I can't really talk about, but I am very, very excited about.
Nice.
So should everybody listening to this podcast.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to seeing those roll out when the time is right. That's great. Well, this has been really wonderful, Voya. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Not at all, other than just say thank you for taking the time and having me on here. Thank you for being a supporter of Mitsubishi and for allowing us to work with Passive House Accelerator and to try to do a little bit better at being a conscientious manufacturer and giving us the opportunity to reach out to the passive community and learn from everybody that's listening to this podcast at various different events that we go to. Because believe it, when I say that whenever we do our webinars and our training sessions and product spotlights, we learn far, far more from you guys than we ever pass on from our own webinars.
That's very gracious. Thank you, Voya. I would just say thank you to you and to Mitsubishi Electric for being a founding sponsor of the accelerator and helping us get off the ground in the first place, and then sustaining your support so that we can do our work. It means a lot, and we're big fans of Mitsubishi Electric. So keep up the good work.
Thank you, and I look forward to see what's going to happen and where we're going to be 5 years and 10 years from now. I think sky's the limit.
Awesome. Thank you for that. That was a great interview, Zack. Really enjoyed it. And I guess the first thing that strikes me is that was not a component spotlight episode.
Right.
Because there was so much great content in there, which it doesn't surprise me in some ways. We've had this before, and I know from my experience working with a component manufacturer in the role of education manager, it was my formal role there.
Right.
So much of what people in those types of roles selling products into the passive house community, so much of their role is based around education. And there was I don't think there was any mention of any of their products.
Right.
Apart from you sort of probing at the end to see what's coming down the line, which I think is a real testament to the quality of people and the passion of people working in this industry is really about the outcomes and about making better buildings. It's not just, as he pointed out, it's not just about selling bigger boxes.
Absolutely. I mean, Chad, Kimberly, and Voya and their colleagues are really, they've got a mission. And I mean, they're change makers, and I think recognize the power of the nexus between a manufacturer of key high performance building components and the community and the developing community of builders and designers who are implementing these components in the field. And I thought that was what was so, kind of cool about Voya's, that as he was leading into his throwdown about Vitruvius, was that recognition of this holistic, this whole ecosystem that they're part of, and the different ways that they can help, as all of us can in our own specific, our own unique, from our own unique kind of seats, help to move each of these like different moving parts forward.
I have to be honest and admit that I didn't know Vitruvius.
I'm sure you're not the only one.
School. Is that my excuse? That's my excuse. I didn't go to architecture school. So for those like me who didn't know or didn't get that comment, Vitruvius he was a Roman architect and he's an engineer as well, around 80 to 70 BC. So he hasn't been around for a while, but he knew some stuff.
That's right. Yeah. And he wrote 10 books on architecture. We'll include a link in show notes.
Yeah. I really, I like the idea, the acknowledgement of anything to do with keeping temperatures comfortable closer to the equator, because I can relate to that.
Right.
And as he pointed out, it was not just about keeping warm, but part of the systems and part of good design is also about keeping heat out and keeping buildings cool, which that's the other great thing about heat pumps and reverse cycle air conditioners, that they can perform both functions and do it very, very energy efficiently as well. And I also like the comment at the end when you did probe a little bit about what's coming, the idea of smaller units. And I think that's a really good point, that the technology of heat pump technology is amazing. and combined with a really, really good envelope, you don't necessarily need a really large unit. And I have heard of situations where a passive house is so efficient that even the smallest units might be a little bit of overkill. So customizing products to that market is a really great opportunity for suppliers like Mitsubishi.
And it has all sorts of benefits around the cost of the units and the energy necessary to run them. It also, interestingly, has pretty significant impacts on the upfront carbon footprint, or at least global warming potential footprint of projects, because it also means that there's a smaller volume of refrigerant. That's something that really interesting work that Skylar Swinford has been showing, and others, of course. He's drawing on other people's work as well. Just like if we can, through Passive House, downsize the heat pumps, then it means also a lot less global warming potential from the refrigerant. So the fact that Mitsubishi is then really starting to provide the units that allow us to fully leverage that lower load is exciting.
Yeah. Awesome stuff. And I quite like the idea of being a plumber after listening.
Totally. Exactly. I mean, there's just going to be this massive demand for the trades in moving forward. Also, with Electrify Everything, it's going to be the electrician. I mean, that's going to just be such a great career.
Young people that I speak to, I encourage them to learn what they can about carbon and carbon accounting, and anyone who's involved in or who looks practical, I encourage them to buy a blower door, because I think those are really, they're not going to go wrong if you've got those skills and be able to do quality assurance through pressure testing, and also being able to account for carbon. I think you're going to be well set up for the future. Awesome stuff. Hey, we'll put some links to Voya and Mitsubishi Electric. Also, thanks again to their support of the show. It's been quite fantastic, and also just the support of the industry as well. They're doing some really great stuff. So it's great to have people like that out there across all the climate zones. Got a whole bunch of events coming up.
We do indeed. So on this Wednesday, is the fifth Wednesday of the month. So that means that our Passive House Accelerator Live program is a special episode, and we're going to have this presentation about healthy materials up-level your interiors and passive house projects. This is a presentation by Michelle Jacobson and Maria Lamonto, and they'll be diving into the implications of material choices in our projects, which is something that's a little bit out of the ordinary for us in our regular programs, but really topical. So it'll be fun to dive into that. Then on April 5th, so the next week's program, we're going to have Tessa Bradley of Artisans Group present for our Passive House Accelerator Live 101 edition, and she'll be presenting 10 steps to designing a single family passive house, tips and tricks from an architect. So this is like Michael did the sort of general 10 steps to designing a passive house. We're going to dive into the single family passive house tips with Tessa. It's going to be very entertaining. I can't wait for that one.
Awesome.
And all sorts of other programs going on. So we'll include a link to all that in show notes.
Sign up to the newsletter so you get all those in your inbox, and check out all the great resources over at passivehouseaccelerator.com. Thank you very much, Zack. We'll be back again next week on the Passive House Podcast.